What's up, book nerds? I'm back. House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas came out today, arrived at my doorstep today, and now I'm gonna read it today. I just saw Haley's comment, she waved. I read the first book in the series called House of Earth and Breath 2 years ago when it came out, like the first week. I don't really remember everything that happens, I'm gonna be honest. I remember the gist of it. Recap what I remember. So there's Bryce and Hunt. Bryce is the girl, Hunt is the man. This one. Her best friend is a wolf. The story starts out with the best friend getting killed. And this girl, Bryce, she's kind of just mysterious. We know that she's like kind of a badass. She discloses that she doesn't have any power, but we know that her father is like the head of like the fire section. I don't really know if it's a court or what. I can't remember. She says she has no power, but that's a lie. She actually has the power of putting off this sun, basically, like this crazy light. And then she meets this guy named Hunt, and he's supposed to protect her, watch over her. There's like these angels who rule the city, and Hunt is one of them. By the end, they defend the city, and she's almost gonna die, and she, I think it's called Ascends. No, that's Blood and Ash. Oh, it's called the Drop. And so only people with like magic at a certain age do the drop, and then they come into their full power. And she basically thinks because she doesn't have any magic that she won't be coming into her full power, but she touches this stone that people touch all the time, and it always zaps a part of their power regardless if they have a lot of it or none of it. And this has been happening for a long time. And so she touches this stone as she makes the drop, and then she gains all of the little inklings that everyone forever has ever gotten zapped out of them. She gains all their power and therefore has a ton of power, and she actually surpasses her father. And that's kind of how it ends. And then she also ends up with Hunt. The angels, like the ruler of the city, it actually turns out he's bad. So that's how the last one ended. I haven't read it in 2 years, and that's just what I could remember off the top of my head. There's a lot more specifics, but it is a Tuesday, and I have class tomorrow at like 2:30 p.m. My schedule is like a cakewalk this semester. I have school from like 2 to 5, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and that's it. And I don't do school Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. I made tea for this start of this adventure. It has a little bit of caffeine in it, I guess. I don't really need help. I stay up until like 1 a.m. now anyways. So, but it just is kind of the vibe, you know? Tea and reading. That's obnoxious. This is what the rest of my night is gonna consist of. I'm gonna do a little reading vlog. It's 800 pages, and once I start it, I'm not gonna be able to put it down because it's Sarah J. Maas, and it's gonna be phenomenal. That's kind of problematic for me. I need to do school work, even though I do have a cakewalk semester, so it's not really a big deal. I don't need to do it. I just should do it, and now I'm not going to until this book is at page 800 or whatever, you know? I gotta finish it, so. I also just made toast, bread and butter. So I have toast, and I have tea, and I have a great book. Really, what else do you need? I don't know. I need that to stop. I'm gonna start this. The ambiance of my room is good. I probably should put on a candle, but I get really hot really easily, and I'm already in sweatpants, so I don't know about that. But I have all my little twinkly lights on. I also have a clip-in, and I can't read with that in. It's gonna hit the pillow and drive me crazy, so we're gonna take that down. Okay. The 4 houses, it says this. I'm just gonna preface this because this is important. House of Earth and Blood, House of Sky and Breath, House of Many Waters, House of Flame and Shadow. So the House of Sky and Breath, that's where the angels, so Hunt is like in that realm, I guess. And that's who was ruling, and I still think they are ruling, but he was a bad guy. Sorry if you don't want to know that and like want to go read these books, but it came out 2 years ago, so really you're slacking. You should have read it by now. Just kidding. But I'm also doing this in like a vlog type style, so I probably will be giving spoilers the whole time. So don't watch it if you don't want to know. And I think House of Flame and Shadow is where, what's her face? Bryce is from, and her father. Yeah. And then it explains like each beast is like belongs to which house. Also, I don't really like keeping these on, I'm gonna be honest. There's the queen herself. But no, yeah, I always put these somewhere else. Like over there, because that floppiness, not my thing. Ooh, look at how pretty that is. Okay, I feel like that's enough footage of me reading. It's not that entertaining. So I'm reading the epilogue, of course, because that's how books start, some books, and it's about a girl named Sophie, and she is a human who made the drop, so she does have power. And she went and found her brother because they were separated, and she like tricked the people she was working for with, and now she is trying to get a group of kids out of somewhere. So I've only read a few pages, but that's what I understand so far. And I'm gonna continue to read this. I think I'm gonna do chapter by chapter quick summaries, because otherwise this video is gonna be like hours long and nobody's gonna watch it. I'll come back when I'm done with this chapter. I just got done with the epilogue. Sophie's parents were killed and she wasn't there. Her brother, Emily, that's what I'm calling him, but I know that's wrong, was taken and put in this like camp that was like terrible conditions, and she got with this group of people because they liked her gift. Her gift is a thunderbird. She electrocuted some wolves in water in this scene. So she got with this group of people, showed them her gifts, and basically did stuff for them so that they would help her find her brother. And so she went in this scene to save her brother and a few other kids, and they ran to a ship and she stayed behind to defend them and avert the pursuers. Her brother, all these kids, and a few people from the group she joined got on this ship and got away, and she was left behind and basically killed, I think, because that was a lot of an epilogue and information about her for her just to die. So I'm hoping she's not dead, but she might be, and it might just be her brother Emily left. So that was the epilogue, and they were not in the previous book. So now I'm on to part 1, and it's called The Chasm, or Chasm. I don't know how you say it. I just got done with chapter 1. Bryce, Hunt, and Bryce's parents are at a dance performance for Bryce's friend, Juniper. We find out that everyone except for the Fae think that Bryce is some princess because she saved the city. She has this light power, and she went through the drop and got all that power. So everyone thinks she's some like goddess. But the Fae do not, because the Fae is like her father and he's jealous and upset. Bryce and Hunt are not really together. They're just friends, but they both want to be more than friends, but they're like taking it slow. But you get the sense that that's not really going to work out because they want to jump each other's bones. So that's chapter 1 in a nutshell. On to chapter 2. I'm like really tired all of a sudden for some reason, so I honestly might not get that much into this book tonight. I never sleep, so when I want to sleep, I do it. Sleep is important. I am back. It is the next night because I did in fact fall asleep. after like 2 chapters, which is actually kind of sad and disappointing. So I just read chapter 2. Bryce and Hunt go to a party. It's at Bryce's brother's house. His name's like Run, that's how I pronounce it. And Furry and Juniper are there. Juniper's the one who just had the ballet performance. And so they go to this party and kind of just hang out and talk, and they find out at the party, Hunt finds out that they're having a new person come in because the last angel who ruled the city was killed because he was a bad guy, and she's like too good and nothing bad has been said about her, so they're kind of worried about it. And so the next day, Hunt is having a meeting with her, and he's nervous about it because he used to be enslaved and now he's not, but he's still kind of nervous that he could be again. So that's what happened. On to chapter 3, I think. Chapter 3, super short. It was basically just Run upstairs with a fawn doing some deeds, and then his friend walks in and interrupts and says, "Get downstairs. I detect some like evil magic." So he walks downstairs, and then Bryce and Hunt come out. Fury comes out, Run, and he has like 2 best friends. They all are out, and a Fae basically walks through the front door through a portal, like a dark portal, and it turns out he is Bryce and Run's cousin, and he declares that Bryce is his bride because she's like property of the Autumn King, her father, and he has declared that they are to be wed. And that's chapter 3. So then 4, that's happens, and it's basically the aftermath of that and how Bryce reacts and how Hunt reacts, like what's the deal. And then the party obviously ends, everyone leaves. They're trying to figure out how to get Bryce's parents out of the city before the news hits that she is to be wed. Bryce and Hunt are obviously not happy about it because Hunt and Bryce are going to be together. She's not going to marry some other guy, obviously. They just went home and there's a male bleeding out in their apartment, so we'll find out about that. So chapter 5 was about a guy named Therian, and he was below the sea where Sophie in the prologue had been dumped, basically to die. She had bricks tied to her body and was thrown off the side of a boat and then drowned, per se. So Therian was sent by the like river queen to find her body, and he ended up finding this cinder box and the chains, but the chains had been unlocked. So basically now he's on the hunt for Sophie's brother because the queen said if you find her brother, you'll probably find her if she's alive. I was right. You don't put an epilogue that long for a person who dies right away, you know? There's no way. She's obviously still alive. So chapter 6 is back to Bryce and Hunt. Like I said, after chapter 4, was it? There was a guy in their apartment all bloody. His name is Ethan. He's in last book, but basically he's a wolf, and he got kicked out of the pack for defending Bryce. So he was all beat up from the pack, and they left him, and he got into their apartment, and then Bryce patches him up, and they sleep in the same bed, which Hunt is very upset about. He's jealous about, because he wants to be sleeping in Bryce's bed. And also Bryce gets her parents out of town, so that's good. So I'm gonna be honest, the Autumn King is a jackass. Chapter 7 is just about how Run goes to his father, the Autumn King, and asks about Bryce and why he's marrying her off to Cormac, the cousin. And Cormac is there in the room, and they talk about it, and yeah, that's basically what happens. When I read, I continuously shift positions because otherwise I get very uncomfortable. So now I'm in like a side position over here. That's why this looks all weird. Chapter 8 started with Hunt threatening Ethan that if he brings any hurt to Bryce in her own home, that Hunt will hurt him. You know, being the alpha male who's lusting after this girl would do. And then it jumps to, I hate when people do that, big dick energy. My dad tells me it's probably small dick energy because they need to make their presence known because of lack of certain items. I'm just kidding. So then it jumps to Bryce at work. She works in this like library with archives, and she calls her former boss, Jessica. Chapter 9. Hunt meets the new governor of the 33rd, and the governor is like the archangel, the new one that's gonna be in control, and Hunt's boss. Her name is Celestial. That's how I'm pronouncing it. Could be completely wrong. And she's like super nice, yada yada. And then at the end, the bomb is dropped that other people are coming and they're not good people. Chapter 10 starts with Hunt attacking one of the new guys. His name's Polix. Yep, Polix. And then that like shifts to Ethan in Bryce's and Hunt's apartment, kind of reminiscing and then trying to fill the quiet because he's never been alone before or packless. And then that shifts to Bryce going to pick Hunt up because she got called by Celestia to pick him up because she heard he was in a fight, so he was in a cell. And then she met Polix and kind of mouthed off to him in true Bryce form. Chapter 11 is about Therian, the guy who is searching for Sophie, and he finds emails between Sophie and Darika, whatever, the wolf from the first book who died, who is Bryce's best friend, or was Bryce's best friend. Anyways, finds these emails, sees that they knew each other, and they were kind of like undercover emails, and they were talking about a place, like a safe place. So then Therian goes to marshes and finds an abandoned boat, and this is like loud. Finds an abandoned boat with the scent of a human boy, which he thinks is Sophie's brother, Emily. Chapter 12. Therian shows up to Crescent City to talk to Bryce and Hunt, and they go back to their apartment, so Ethan's there, and then Bryce gets her brother there. Therian tells them about Danica and how she is, or was probably a rebel, and that she was in contact with Sophie. And now they all know that Emily is probably in the city, and now Bryce wants to find him and help him. But Hunt is kind of against it because finding and helping a potential rebel would mean they would probably get killed because the angels told them to lay low after everything that happened in the last book. And then Declan and Flynn showed up and they eat pizza. It ends with Hunt declaring that he's staying in Bryce's bed tonight. So we'll see if the next chapter is steamy. Chapter 13, Bryce going to talk to Fury about what she had learned the night before from Therian. Also, update on Bryce and Hunt. They just slept in the bed together. Didn't do anything. No spice. Chapter 14 starts off with Hunt, like, training, working out. He talks to Baxian, one of the new guys, who's presumably bad. And they're paired up together. And honestly, I feel like there's a lot more to Baxian than we realize. That maybe he's not all bad. I don't know. Therian shows back up at Bryce and Hunt's apartment, knocks on the door. Ethan lets him in, and they kind of bond. Ethan tells him a little tidbit that he knew about Danica, that she was writing a paper, and then switched topics, which he said was weird because she was relentless and would never give up or switch topics. Chapter 15, Bryce talking to her brother Run about Danica and how she was a bloodhound, which basically means she can scent the heritage of people, or she could because she's now dead. And then they get back to the apartment, they're chilling on the couch, and they have a cat on them, and she stops cold. They think it's just like this normal domestic cat that Bryce has in her apartment, but it's really a prince of the chasm, which I'm taking as like a prince of hell kind of.
and he starts talking to them and Hunt, because Hunt arrives. This Prince Adis says that they should basically become rebels, and that he doesn't know anything about Danica and Emily or Sophie, but that the history is wrong and that the Prince of the Chasm is at Bryce's beck and call, kind of. Bryce is like, well, I don't even know any rebels, and the bomb is dropped that, yes, she does, because this cousin of hers, Cormac, is a rebel, apparently. Chapter 16, Cormac, who is engaged to Bryce, is let in by the Prince Cat, and the people in the room are Bryce, Hunt, Ron, Ethan, and Therian, and now Cormac. And Cormac explains that he's actually a rebel, and basically by the end, Bryce makes a deal with him and says, I will fake being engaged with you. It's so that I can help you find Emily and Sophie and stuff about Danica, as long as he, Cormac, helps Bryce with her gifts, her Starlight gifts. That chapter was intense, let me tell you. Chapter 17. I think I forgot to mention that Sophie is so valuable because she also gained intel on the rulers, the Astery. And she's a Thunderbird, but it's because she has this intel that both the rebels and, if the Astery knew, would want her. This last chapter was kind of just Bryce going back to work and Hunt walking with her, and then they went into an alley and kind of talked about everything they had just learned, and finally got steamy. They just made out, but it was good, and I'm happy they finally made out. I've been waiting for this for 200 pages. The sugar and spice is sure to continue. I think that's it for tonight. It's past midnight now. It's like 12:10, and I've been reading since like 7:30, and I'm on page 202 to be exact, but tomato. I think that's it. I think I'm gonna watch some YouTube and fall asleep, so well, fingers crossed that I fall asleep, because sometimes I don't. So if that happens, I'll just continue to read. I'm back, book nerds. It is Friday. Yesterday, I did not vlog at all, nor did I read, because I did school like all day, then I worked out, then I had dinner, and then there was a wrestling meet that I watched, and I had wine during it, and then afterwards, I kind of hung out with my roommates a little bit and kept drinking wine, so I was a little drunk, and so I just kind of went to bed and didn't even get to read yesterday. And I don't think I would have been able to read or focus on like words, because, you know, I was drunk. I normally babysit on Friday mornings and like normally Thursday nights, so I wouldn't normally even be here, but my cousin was sick, so I couldn't babysit this week. So I have all day today. It is 10 a.m. to read this book. And when I say all day, I mean I literally do not have to move from this spot until this is done. I don't think I'm gonna finish it today. I think I'll probably get like 2/3 of it done. I might get up to like go to the bathroom and eat. And I definitely need to take a shower because my hair is greasy. Chapter 18, Ethan being left alone in Bryce and Hunt's apartment, and he went and got Danica's sword and was like parrying around the apartment. And Bryce came back to get her ID and saw him, and he was on top of the coffee table in the living room, and then it broke. And Bryce rushed over, but it wasn't to like help him or get the sword. It was because inside the coffee table was a bunch of Danica's papers. So that's where that left off. And then it switched to Run talking to Declan and Flynn, his two best friends, about everything that happened and just kind of explaining. And now they're in on it, and Ron is gonna go talk to Cormac about how he can help with the rebels. Chapter 19 starts out with Bryce and Ethan in the apartment looking through Danica's papers. They're connected to Sophie and Emily. I've been calling him Emily, and one of my roommates is reading this book right now too, and she calls him Emil, I think. I'm just gonna start calling him M because I know Emily is wrong, but I just don't know how to pronounce it, so I'm gonna call him M from here on out. Dusk's Truth and Project Thur, those are the two things that connect Danica to Sophie. So those were kind of like in the papers and they're trying to figure it out. It switches to Run talking to Cormac. What is going on? Oh, it's the trash. So it switches to Run talking to Cormac in a bar and they're playing pool. And Cormac basically explains everything, and there's this agent or person named Daybright who is in contact with Sophie before she went missing, and they communicated through crystals. So Cormac gives Run this crystal and says, because of your mind abilities, I think if you just reach out while holding this crystal, you'll be able to talk to this Daybright person. And Run agrees, and that's how that ends. Chapter 20 starts with Therian, and he is like fixing some bike, and then the River Queen's daughter shows up, basically trying to get him to have sex with her. And he says no. They have like this weird arrangement because Therian apparently did have sex with her, and then the River Queen found out, and now basically he one day has to marry her and have children with her, but he doesn't really like her like that, so it's kind of a shitty situation for him. And then it jumps to Hunt showing around. I said that new like angels came in, and Baxian is one of them, and he's bad apparently, but Hunt shows him around, and I just don't think he's bad, so there's that. And then Hunt is left at the end with his two friends, Naomi and Isaiah. Hunt is kind of like faced with that mental dilemma of, do I tell them about Ophian, which is the rebel group, or not? And he chooses not to. Chapter 21, Bryce and Hunt finally getting it on, but Ethan was there, so they kind of had to stop. But anyways, that happened, and then Hunt had a dream. It wasn't a dream. It was one of the princes from hell wanted to talk to him and recruit him, basically, and tell him that him and Bryce together could be a force to be reckoned with. Chapter 22 starts out with Run using the crystal to contact Agent Daybright, and he's given the name by her of Agent Dark Knight, I believe. It's a girl, and she like arrives in his mind in this like fire form, and basically doesn't have much to tell him, but they meet each other. And I think honestly they're gonna fall in love. I'm just calling it right now because day bright, day night, and he liked it, and he liked her voice, so yep, it's happening. And then that ended, and he went and talked to Cormac, or Cormac came over to his house. And then it switches to Hunt, and Hunt got called by the Archangel Celestina, the new person who rules the city. I think it's the Astri are like looked at as gods, and then it's the archangels, and then I think Hunt is an angel, but like not as high up. I think that's how that goes, but I'm just not really sure. I'm kind of confused about it. Yeah, so he's called in a meeting by her, and he's walking over and gets in there. Baxian and Pollux, they got in a fight because Pollux was trying to rape a girl, and Baxian beat him up and defended the girl. And then Hunt is asked to stay behind and talk to only the Archangel, and you get the sense that she's a good guy, not a bad guy, so that's good. And that she might be a rebel. We also find out that she now, because of the whole ordeal, it got filmed and put on the internet in order to kind of take the public's eye away from the fight between the two angels or archangels or whatever. She is now gonna mate with someone, which is kind of sad because it doesn't feel like she wants to. Chapter 23 started with Ethan and Therian, and Therian was investigating a murder, and Ethan came along to like smell it out, and then they went below, like in the river. Therian brought Ethan to his room basically there, and Ethan suggested that maybe Pippa, who is one of the rebels trying to find M, went and like killed this Selkie to get information about M and Sophie, perhaps, because there was a little bit of scent of a human boy, M, and then a lot of scent of a human girl, Pip. And then it went to Bryce and Run, and they were talking about Bryce bringing Hunt and Run home to her mother, who they're currently in a fight with, for the holidays. And then Run gets taken by a Reaper down into a sewer. I just got done with chapter, 24. And now we're on part 2, The Abyss. And in chapter 24, Run talking to Daybright. See, this is the problem with me. I can't remember names to save my life. Yeah, it's Daybright. I got it right. Okay, so Run talking to Daybright. In their minds, he didn't have the stone on them, but now they like have a connection because they're obviously gonna get together and end up together. She was yelling at him to wake up. And then it goes to Bryce's perspective. She follows him down into the sewer and talks to the Reapers, and they basically tell her that the Prince of Hell is ready to wage war on their world and that he wants her to be ready. And she's like, you assholes, I was going to train, so why would you interrupt it just to tell me this? And then basically they start fighting, and Cormac shows up, and he can teleport, so he's going around like with his night powers too and zapping the Reapers. They can't die, just wait, but he's like taking them out per se for the moment. And then Bryce uses her light and like flashes out, and then Cormac hands her the Star Sword, which was on Run, because they like drop Run, and Cormac catches him, gets the Star Sword, tosses it to Bryce. Bryce then kills a Reaper. So she killed something that was supposed to be unkillable. And that's how that ends. And then they like get transported by Cormac to their training room to safety. Chapter 25 started out with Therian talking to the River Queen. Basically her just yelling at him and getting him back in line so that he's searching for M and is gonna bring M to her. And then he gets in trouble and has to go pick up trash while the humans and like people above sneer at him. And then it switches to Run, and he went to his father, the Autumn King, to ask about the Star Sword, but like in a nonchalant way, because he doesn't want him to know that like it killed a Reaper, something that couldn't be killed. And as always, the Autumn King is an asshole, and the conversation doesn't go swell. Chapter 26. It starts out with Bryce and Hunt talking to Cormac, and Bryce basically asks if he can teach her how to teleport like he can, because it's a star gift, and well, Bryce's heritage is star-bound light, whatever. She calls Jessica, her old boss, and gets 2 tickets basically to the underworld, and then she goes back to her apartment, and it is Ethan and Declan who are on computer systems trying to see where the Reapers came out of or from, and then trying to get some more footage on if M is in the city. And then also Danica, some footage from her pops up too. They don't really find out much about the Reapers. It's kind of like they came out of thin air. So last chapter ended with like Bryce and Hunt going to work out, but they really went to the bone market. I was close. They went to the bone quarter, and Bryce invited Juniper and Fairy along, and they all checked. There's like 4 different warehouses, stalls sort of deals, and they all checked for M, and they didn't find him, and so then they left. And then Bryce and Hunt actually did go work out, and things got a little frisky, and I'm here for it. But yeah, so they did some things, and then they went back up to the apartment and were talking in bed and decided to be mates. Mates forever. It's life, because they're in love, and it's never gonna end, and I'm so happy about it. I just love love. And now I think the next day they're going to speak to the king of the underworld,
Stay tuned, it's about to get real.
Chapter 28. Run talked to Daybright. She told him that in 3 days the Astery were moving like a shipment, and in it was this Myrrh suit that would make them basically unstoppable. The rebels need to stop that shipment. And then Run woke up and told the apartment that, and now Hunt and Bryce are going to the underworld. Chapter 29. Hunt and Bryce go to the docks to get on a boat to the underworld, and Baxian shows up and asks questions, but ultimately lets them go, which makes Hunt a little worried because he doesn't like Baxian. And then they get to the underworld and talk to the king, and he tells them that A, he didn't send the Reapers on them, and that Reapers have many masters and he doesn't really have control of them. And then B, that M and Sophie were not in the underworld. The Bone Quarter is not where Danica told Sophie in their email exchange to go. And then 3, that death is very different from what they had been taught. It's not some peaceful sleep thing. It's actually that the king kind of feasts on the power of the dead. That chapter ends with him saying that they're not leaving there alive because he wants to taste Bryce's light. So a fight is about to go down. So chapter 30 started out with Bryce and Hunt getting attacked by the king of the underworld, but he has this hellhound and sent it after them, and it split into 3 hellhounds, and Bryce ran away back to the river, and Hunt was defending her with his lightning, but then she was like, no, I need to go back and defend my mate. So she turns around, and then it switches to Run, Ethan, and Cormac, and they are investigating, and Cormac is talking to the intel about what they just learned from Daybright, and then someone shows up named Mordock, that's how I'm gonna say it, and he's this bad guy, and he turns out Danica's father, so he's also a bloodhound and can scent things, and they're hiding in the shadows, but then Cormac teleports Ethan out of there and comes back for Run, but before he gets Run, Mordock says I'll remember your scent. Chapter 31 starts out with Run and Ethan in a bar because they wanted to be caught on camera, not where Mordock was, so they had a story to back it up. Ethan is asked by Run to stay and move into his house, and that's the ruse, they had a meeting there, and a Hind shows up, and another girl, but these 2 girls came with Mordock, and they're all really bad guys, and they just showed up at the bar with them. And then it switches back to Bryce and Hunt, and Bryce is facing down all the 3 dogs, hellhounds, and there's Reapers there, and they're all waiting at the gate of death, and she slides for her sword, gets her back ripped open by one of the hellhounds' claws, and then she's ready to go, and Hunt shows up again and is screaming, and then shoots his lightning at the hellhounds, but Bryce gets up and puts the star sword in front of the lightning, and it hits it, and then basically the world explodes, and she goes badass. Chapter 32. Bryce and Hunt fighting the hellhounds, and they're in front of the death gate, and Hunt realizes he can channel the power from it and then shoot Bryce again, and then she'll charge up and be able to kill the hellhound. They fly out of there, get back on a boat. Therian is there and picks them up basically on a jet ski is what I think. It's called a wave runner, but it's a jet ski. And then they get away. There's these fish eel things in the water, the last try, I guess, by the king of the underworld to stop them and kill them, but that doesn't happen, and they get away. And then they go to the apartment, and they find out that Run and Ethan are not there. Ephraim and the Hind and the pack of Dreadwolves are all here, as in the Hind is the one who went to the bar and snuck up on Run and Ethan. Chapter 33. the Hind and Harpy, the two bad girls who are at the bar with Ethan and Run, decide to play poker with them, and they just know a lot more than they should. They know that Ethan is in love with Bryce and tries to rile him, and it kind of works. And then they kind of know about Run and his life in general, so that just kind of creeps them out. And actually the Hind is the one who murdered Sophie in the beginning of the book. Then they go back to the apartment and tell the rest of the crew what happened. Chapter 33 starts with Celestina, the archangel that rules this area, preparing to meet her new mate, and his name is Ephraim. Ephraim is the one who is in control of the Hind, all the bad people that just came in. That's who he's in control of, and that's Celestina's new mate. And so she is meeting them, and it's kind of awkward, but Hunt has to be there. And then it switches to Bryce's apartment, and Sabine, the head of the wolves, basically Danika's mother, who kicked out Ethan, shows up all pissed off. And then Hunt gets a text message from her and leaves this little party gathering to go be with Bryce, which ends with Celestina being disappointed. And I actually cracked up because it's like completely inappropriate in but Bryce changed her phone number in Hunt's phone to Bryce sucks my dick like a champ, and I just think that's funny. I cracked up out loud. I just read chapter 35, Sabine in Hunt and Bryce's apartment, and her and Ethan had a standoff kind of, and then they got her out, and Hunt arrived. Maxian shows up too, so he's kind of following Hunt around, obviously. And then they get Sabine out, and then they talk about how Mordok is, or was, Danika's father. And it's also brought up how Ethan could possibly take over for the wolves and overthrow Sabine one day. So, and Ethan leaves with Run, so he takes him up on the offer to live with him. So now it's just Hunt and Bryce all alone in an apartment. Let's get it on. Chapter 36 starts with a Run talking to Day, like telepathically, and Ethan goes back to their house, and so it switches then to Ethan waking up and kind of going over how he met Bryce after Connor, and Connor had gushed about this girl, and then he met her in a hall and was talking to her and like fell in love instantly. And then Connor came out and was like, oh, this is Bryce. And then it kind of thwarted Ethan's love for her. Kind of get that backstory in this chapter. And then he goes and finds Varian to go see what is to be done about Connor in the underworld, because Ethan doesn't like that he might become light for the gate instead of actually rest in peace. Like he might be like kind of eaten by the underworld king. Chapter 37 starts with Bryce and Juniper at a dance class, and it ends, and Juniper continuously doesn't get promoted basically because she told off the head of the like council, or like the people in charge. She told them off because they're not great people and they didn't like that. So she's the best dancer, but she's not in the best position because of it. Ends with Bryce making a call, and I think she's going to use her new power and status to try to help Juniper out, but I think it might bite her in the ass, gonna be honest. And then it switches to Hunt, and he's working out, and then the Hind comes to get him and bring him to Celestial, and basically he is in trouble for leaving the night prior. When he said he had Celestial's back, he left for Bryce, and so Celestial is telling him, you have to stay in the barracks, like on site for 2 weeks. You can't go sleep in your apartment with Bryce. The Harpy's the one who dropped him off with Celestia, and then the Hind is the one who is there when he gets out of her room, and she walks back up with him and kind of is interrogating him, and then Baxian is there when he gets up. But yeah, he's pissed off because now he can't sleep with Bryce. celibate. Chapter 38, Ethan, Bryce, and Tharian go to the Mystics. It's this creepy old wizard guy who has like 3 or 4 tanks of humans in it who are like mystical and can go and answer any question, but it's kind of like inhumane. And they go to see where Connor is, and they go to hell, which is not where they thought Connor was. They thought he was in the underworld. So another one of the princes of hell, this was in chapter 39, shows up, I guess, and he is the one that the mystic is talking to, one of them, and then he gives them the answers about Connor and then starts to feed on the mystic, which like basically causes a blackout, and not even Bryce's starlight will work. And then Ethan like jumps to the tanks and frees all the mystics. There's 3 of them. They leave the astronomer, that's the guy who like owns the mystics or whatever, and nobody's really happy, and Bryce is yelling at Tharian, like saying, I don't want to work with you anymore, and then Mordok is there. Chapter 40 starts with Mordok, like from chapter 39, it goes over. Bryce, Tharian, and Ethan get out of there, and Bryce forgives Tharian. And then it switches to Hunt's point of view, and he's talking with Isaiah, just like joking around, and then Baxian shows up, and then Hunt and him kind of play video games and bond. And then it switches back to Bryce, and her and Hunt have phone sex. A few hours have passed since I last vlogged. I went to the gym, then I ate dinner, and then I got a shower. Then I hung out with my roommates for a little bit. I just read chapter 41, and it starts out with Declan saying that he went through all the footage with Danica and calls Bryce over, and they see that in the old library with Jessica that Bryce worked at, picked up a book when she was left alone and took pictures of some pages. And then Bryce calls Jessica, and then Jessica sends the book over to them, and they see that it's a family tree of Danica's. Bryce goes to talk to the prime, like wolf person, and get some intel. So then they get back to the apartment, and Cormac is there again, and he's all bloody because of Mordok, and he says that the mission to get the Myrrh suit was a success, and now they have it, and Pippa is probably gonna lead some attack. Chapter 42 is much longer, and I really appreciate it because all these chapters are so short. Juniper calls Bryce and basically yells at her and says, like, how could you use your status as princess to get me at a higher up spot at my job? Bryce goes and meets with Celestina to get Hunt for a day, but then she's basically like, he's brooding because he's so sad that he's not with you, so after tonight he can just stay with you again, I don't care. Ethan goes back to the Mystics and talks to one of the girls who he set free, and it turns out she's actually a wolf but has been a mystic in this tank since she was 3 or 4 years old because her parents sold her. And I get the sense that Ethan and her one day are gonna be together. I'm just calling it now. There's a vibe. They're definitely into each other. It jumps to Run talking to Day, like telepathically, and I think Day is Celestina, the Archangel ruler. I really do, because she's like ripped from their conversation to have rough sex that she didn't enjoy, and I think that was her new mate that she was forced into. My room gets really hot, so I always open windows, but it's like cold in Wisconsin, so then my room gets very cold. It's a never-ending battle. So now my nose is all cold and dripping, and I'm freezing, and so now I put on my robe, but I'll be fine. Chapter 43, Hunt, Bryce, and Run, and then Cormac. Cormac brought them all to an island where I think I called it a mersuit earlier, I can't remember, but it's called a mech suit, where the rebels were looking at the suit, and Hunt was needed to like identify it and understand it for them because he had worked with things in the past that were similar. And he basically said, like, you guys can't use this. This is going to be an all-out war. Innocent people are going to get killed if you use this on both sides. And the rebels were like, we don't care. And then the rebels ended up killing a group of Veneer, which is like magical people, non-human, who had helped them get there, just because of the risk that their Veneer could end up going to tell the angels. Bryce and Hunt and all of them didn't like this whole mass murdering, but like your allies thing. And then they didn't like the whole suit thing, so Hunt blew up the suit and then blew up a bunch of trucks. The Pip girl came and shot Cormac so he couldn't teleport them out of there. And then Bryce shot up like a star and they got out of there. They ran to a boat and sped away. But then Hunt saw Baxian on the shore, and if Baxian is there, apparently the Hind is close. Not even gonna lie, I just hit a wall and I'm so tired. Just got done with chapter 44. They're all in a boat, racing away still, and then they have to jump off of the boat because a torpedo comes and hits the boat, and then they're all in the water trying to figure out what to do. And the Hind comes over in a jet ski and is basically like sneering at them, like, what are you gonna do now? Admits that she's the one who killed like ocean people come and save them because Therian sent out a signal, and then Bryce was glowing, which they took as like the sign of where they were, and they went and got him. Now they're in like this torpedo ship underwater sailing away. I'm on page 494. It's Friday. This book came out on Tuesday, so we're doing pretty well. Honestly, I should be done with the book by now. I'm really slacking. Yesterday I didn't even read. I think I'm gonna try to read one more chapter and then go to bed. But I have to get up and go brush my teeth and do all that stuff. That's like the last thing I want to do. I'm gonna do it. But I'm tired and I don't want to move. My nose is like Rudolph's, it's so cold. I just read chapter 45. It starts out with Ethan in Run's apartment with Declan and Flynn, and then Declan's boyfriend Mark. And they release all the 4 like fire sprites, I think they're called. And then it switches to Ocean Queen's little torpedo boat thing. It's undetectable, so they can't sense any of the electricity or people on board, and then it can also be camouflaged to its surroundings, so they get to the seafloor and then it camouflages to look like a rock, and the rebel ship goes right past and they're in the clear for now. Hunt needs to calm down, so Bryce and him are going in a room alone. But I don't think getting it on is gonna calm him down, so we'll see. A few days have passed since I last vlogged. It is now Monday night, and I last vlogged on Friday night. So Saturday, I was busy just like cleaning my room. I got groceries, just miscellaneous things. I meal prepped, and then it was one of my roommate's birthdays, so from like 7 on, I was busy having fun with her. Sunday morning, I had wrestling, and then my parents were there, so I hung up with them for a little bit before they had to leave. And then I just kind of had a bad day and sat around Sunday until Euphoria, and I didn't do much of anything, which kind of sucks, but it's also just another day dealing with mental health. And then I watched Euphoria and went to bed, and I got a really good sleep. I actually slept till like 11 this morning, and then I just got up and did school, went to class, came back, worked out, ate dinner, got a shower, like all the things. And now it is 8:30 and I'm reading. And I also talked to my brother, which is very nice. I love my brothers. I just read chapter 46, and it started out with Bryce and Hunt having sex. Mind-blowing sex, and Bryce actually teleported because of it, because their powers kind of merged. And then it jumps back to Run's house, and Flynn, Declan, Mark, Ethan, they're all there, and it's like the fire sprites, the three of them, and then the dragon. They're talking to them, and apparently they're slaves of the astronomers, and they don't really know what they're gonna do yet, but for the time being, they're gonna stay at the house. And then it jumps back to Bryce and Hind asking Cormac kind of about what just happened, like the teleporting, and then it ends with the Ocean Queens, whatever, this crony who basically picked them up and helped them, saying that they found a girl named Sophie and she was in fact dead. Chapter 47 started out with them all seeing Sophie's body in the morgue and Cormac kind of breaking down and mourning her loss. And then it switches to Therian talking to the Ocean Queen's like lackey, the one who picked them up and saved them. He's like invited down into a room to see like how the ship operates and talks to her. Maybe Therian will go to the Ocean Queen instead of the River Queen, because the River Queen is a bitch. It switches to Run, and he talks to Day, and she gives him a little nighttime story to fall asleep. And then it ends with him waking up and she's still asleep because she fell asleep too, like telepathically. And he goes over and looks at her close, and it startles her, and she wakes up and then gives a bad ending to the story and leaves. So she's pissed. So now I'm on part 3, which is called The Pit. Chapter 48 was very short. They all just got back to Bryce's apartment. No one was there, so the Hind didn't tell anyone that she saw them and that they could be rebel sympathizers. Yeah, that's how you say that word. And then Baxian actually shows up and says he wants in and that he's a rebel sympathizer. Chapter 49, Bryce and Hind go to the meat market, to the Viper Queen's like lair, I guess. And Emily, or email, whatever, is there. So Bryce was right. She actually was behind the whole thing and made a deal with the Viper Queen in order to get M. And it turns out that he has no powers. He's not a Thunderbird like Sophie was. Hind feels kind of betrayed because Bryce didn't tell him any of this and she's just been scheming. We'll see how that fight goes. So chapter 50 starts off with Bryce and Hind taking M out of there, and Bryce actually set up for him to have a new life and name and everything with her parents. So they're basically siblings now, and he has no power, so it's just out of the goodness of her heart because he's a kid and he's alone. But now he's not. He has a family, so that's fun. Bryce goes to Run's house and sees all these fire sprites and talks to them, and then she calls Jessica, asks if she can do a favor and call the astronomer and get him to accept money for what Ethan stole. And then Jessica was like, okay, I'll do this favor for you, but now you owe me a favor. So basically, Bryce owes Jessica and the Viper Queen a favor now. It is the next night. I know I'm in the same clothes, but that is because it is like sleeting snow outside, so all my classes were moved online, and I honestly have not moved from my bed all day, so I haven't changed out of my pajamas. I know that's not healthy, but we're gonna let it slide for a day. So chapter 51 started out with Hind going to Celestina to like catch up with her and note that the Hind didn't tell anyone, and she didn't. Now on Hind, the smell of Bryce and like that they're mated since they had sex is apparent to everyone. Hind goes and hunts down the Hind. Hind hunts. She basically pretends like she doesn't know anything when she did in fact see them. So Hind's kind of on the fence about that, and then the Hind says go look and see what the Harpy did on the front gate, and Hind goes and sees that there are rebels like flayed for everyone to see. And then it switches to Run, and he opens the door to his house to Queen Hypaxia and a door. Chapter 52. Queen Hypaxia is Run's fiance, the witch queen, and she comes to his house to ask if he would send someone to escort her to this like party coming up or celebration, because she doesn't trust her clan. She thinks they want to overthrow her with the Hind, Lydia, because she's like her half sister, but she doesn't have any witch powers, but she still thinks they're gonna try to overthrow her. And then it switches to Hunt talking to Tharian, just saying stop looking for em. He has no powers and he's safe, and I'm not gonna tell you where he is, but it's a dead end. And then they also talk about a demon. Chapter 53 starts out with Hunt going to the archives where Bryce works and asking if he can get in after hours to look up stuff about demons, and then they talk and have makeup sex because they were sort of fighting. Switches to Run, and he talks to Day, and it's depressing. Chapter 54, Bryce's dad, the Autumn King, comes into her work, the archives, and basically says, because you have used the princess title, you are now a princess, and here's all the paperwork for your new last name, and here's a sleek credit card and all the things, like thanks for coming into your birthright, basically, which Bryce hates because she hates her father and doesn't want anything to do with his name or being a princess. She calls up Queen Hypaxia, and they basically have girl talk, and Ethan and the dragon girl, whatever, are her new escorts. Those are the two that Run assigned to her in hopes that then it would be under legal circumstances that they took the dragon from the astronomer. Ethan said, I will guard you in return for you helping me find Connor, because the witch has like ties to the dead. Chapter 55, a demon shows up, the one Hunt had seen and was looking for in the archives, shows up on the bridge where Hypaxia and Bryce are talking, and Ethan is on guard, and it like jumps out in front of Ethan and slits his throat open, so he's like falling and dying. And then another demon shows up, cuts off any exit, so it's just Hypaxia and Bryce back to back, and then the demons on both sides. And then Hypaxia hits Bryce with her power, and Bryce starts teleporting, grabs Ethan's gun on him and shoots one of the demons, and then continues to teleport around the other demon until it tricks it into getting right below Hypaxia, because she got on her broom in the sky, and she jumps off of it with a knife and stabs the demon in the head. Kills it. And then Hunt and Isaiah, like the 33rd, shows up. Hypaxia takes Ethan, because she's also a med witch, and heals him, and then takes him to her like quarters to look after him. And Bryce, Run, Hunt, like a bunch of them go there, and then Run breaks the news that Bryce is now a princess, and Hunt therefore is a prince since they're mated. Chapter 56, Ethan wakes up alive and talks to Hypaxia, and she realizes he's actually a good person. And then Declan and Flynn come in, very concerned about Ethan, and Ethan gets all choked up because it's been a while since someone's really cared about him. Tharian and Hypaxia go in a separate room to talk, and you get the sense that Tharian is the male that Hypaxia loves, because they're very playful and their banter is very much, you just get the vibe. Love is in the air. Tharian leaves and goes to Run's house and asks to be another roommate. This light is freaking bright. Chapter 57 starts off with Hunt and Bryce talking about how they're now princess and a prince, and then Bryce comes up with an idea and smiles because she is gonna try to get out of it. And then it switches to Run, and he talks to Day. Autumnal Equinox Ball. They're gonna meet at midnight, which I just think is so cute because they're day and night. They're gonna have a meet cute at midnight. Chapter 58 is the ball that the last chapter was talking about, and Hunt and Bryce are getting ready and go to it, and then Bryce walks in with Cormac, because that's who she's engaged to, but goes straight to the archangels and announces that Hunt is her mate, which basically puts the Autumn King on the spot, and he has to acknowledge it as well. So she kind of got out of the mess with Cormac and her father. The Asteri show up on a screen. Chapter 59. So Bryce and Hunt basically dance, and then Run is dancing with Hypaxia, and she decides that she wants to go talk to her sister, the Hind, also known as Lydia, and walks up to her. Run goes with her. So it's Pollux and Lydia, or the Hind, and then it's Run and Hypaxia, and then both Run and Pollux end up leaving. Run goes to the fountain to meet Day. It doesn't really seem like the sisters' talk is gonna go well, but we'll see. Run goes to the fountain and the Harpy is there. And so I was like, oh my god, it cannot be the Harpy. But then I read ahead because I read like the next page of the next chapter, and I'm gonna give you a spoiler because I'm gonna give it to your next chapter recap anyway. Harpy does not know what day means. Like, she doesn't say night back. That was their code. So it's not the Harpy. Harpy is not day, thank God. Chapter 60 starts out with Run in the garden, as I already talked about, and the Harpy's there, but she doesn't understand the whole day thing, so she's not day. And then Run leaves because he's like, I don't want to be found out with Day and them to connect the whole rebel sympathizer thing. So he like runs out. The Hind is walking out. The Hind, I think, is Day, not Celestina, because then it flashes to Hunt and Bryce, and they're like running to a coat closet to have sex because they're horny little bastards. Celestina and Hypaxia are in there, like getting busy, and so that's who they love. Hypaxia loves Celestina, Celestia loves Hypaxia, and so Celestina is obviously not Day, and Hypaxia obviously doesn't love Tharian. I'm just wrong about everything, I guess, but I think the Hind is Day, and that's why the Hind has not told anyone about them being rebels, obviously. It would all make sense. Ends with Tharian. He's dancing with the River Queen's daughter, who's like kind of his fiance, and it ends with him handing her off to a guard and kind of leaving, and he's kind of like, I'm over this ruse, like I don't like her, she doesn't really like me, I've been playing her for 10 years and I think I'm gonna give up regardless of the wrath that the River Queen is gonna bring down on me. Chapter 61 starts out with Ethan and Hypaxia doing like magic, necromancy or whatever to find Connor, and then it switches to Run talking to Day, and now Day knows who he is because she saw him, but Run still doesn't know who she is. I think she's the Hind now, but we'll see because I've obviously been wrong with all of my love pairs. It switches to Bryce and Hunt and they have sex. What's new? That's all they do. Chapter 62 starts out with Ethan and Hypaxia calling for Connor, like to the dead, and then the king of the underworld shows up. Unexpected. And then it switches to Bryce and she's sleeping, like in her dream, and one of the princes of hell, Prince of the Pit, comes to her and basically tells her to use the horn on her back with Hunt's power to open the doors to hell so that they can wage war on the Asteri. And he tells her about the history between the first starborn queen or princess and one of the princes of hell, and how they were in love and actually rebelled against the Asteri, but that's like gone from history. And then it switches back to Ethan and Hypaxia, and they're like trying to get out of this ward that the king of the underworld put them in, but there's like demons or like animals coming out of the woods. Chapter 63 starts out with Bryce at the Ox training center, and she's getting hit by Hunt's power and teleporting around the room. And then she tells Run, Cormac, Tharian, and then Hunt, but he already knew about what happened with them, sort of. And then Ethan and Hypaxia show up and tell Bryce she needs to go speak with the king of the underworld. Chapter 64, Tharian and Flynn go to the meat market to meet with the Viper Queen because they find out that she has the dragon. Switches to Bryce and the crew, like Hunt, Run, and Hypaxia, and they're at a temple to meet the underworld king, and it turns out he kind of set them up, and Pippa comes with a bunch of rebels to like kill them, and then Bryce starts teleporting them out of there, and then in that alerts the 33rd. Bunch of people show up and there's a big fight, and then Baxian helps them out of the temple, and it turns out that Baxian is actually, or was, Danika's mate. Chapter 65 starts out with Bryce and Hunt talking to Baxian, and Baxian explains the whole mating thing, and then he talks about Sophie and how Danika knew her, and how the numbers that Sophie carved into herself when she was drowning actually are the codes to get into the Astery archives. And then they go to get Declan, and he does this like hacking stuff and finds that Sophie did in fact go into that room like 2 months before she died, and she came out like 15 minutes later white-faced. So she did in fact get the intel, and now Bryce wants to go there. Chapter 66, Bryce goes to Ferry to get the blueprints of the Asteroid archives because she's been there before. And Therian breaks up with the River Queen's daughter and then runs to the Viper Queen. Ethan goes to the Prime and Sabine to tell them about the mystic Alpha Wolf to try to get her help and out of there. Chapter 67, Therian becomes a slave to the Viper Queen in order to get out of his engagement to the River Queen's daughter. And then Ethan decides to stay behind and try to save the Mystic because she might be like a Fendar Alpha. So like Danika and Sabine's line. Switches to Run, and he has sex telepathically, but like real, with Day. Chapter 68, they go over the plan for tomorrow. They're gonna go to the Aster archives. Bryce, Hunt, and Run are going in. Run's gonna go find Day, because apparently she's there, so maybe she isn't the Hind. And then Bryce and Hunt are gonna go into the archive room and figure out what Sophie found out. It ends with Bryce calling Juniper and apologizing and saying that she loves her. Therian and Cormac are gonna do a little distraction, hopefully getting Pippa out and blowing up some stuff for the mech suits related in order to get the Astery's eyes off the archives and onto them. Chapter 69, Cormac and Run kind of bond at a bar, and Cormac apologizes, and then Hunt goes to the barracks to get some weapons that were in his old room and runs into Celestina. And then chapter 70 is the start of the whole festivities, and Therian and Cormac get to the extraction site where the mech suits, like the lab, and Pippa's there in the trees, so that's a go. Run, Bryce, and Hunt all get inside the like Astery. It ends with Hunt getting Bryce some power, and she teleports into the archives. Cormac and Therian blow up something, so the distraction is started as well. Chapter 71, you finally learn the secret of the Asteroid. They feed off first light that people give in the drop, and then second light that people give in death, and that's how they have power. They don't have any starlight within their chest or anything. They simply feed off other people's power, and that's how they remain in power. It's a freaking scam, and there's 7 of them, but one of them was eaten. Chapter 72. Bryce learns Dusk's truth, which is something Danika had written in an email to Sophie. Oh my god, it's midnight. Why are people so loud out there? Dusk's truth is that the Astery have been going from planet to planet, like world to world, and either conquering and killing its people, basically, because they're parasites feeding off of people's energy, or they've been like kicked out. Chapter 73. Bryce talks to Regulus, one of the Astery, and he explains that Midgard, like their planet, is a base, and they've brought powerful beings in, but then the Starborn Queen or princesses basically trap them. They want to use Bryce's horn and power to untrap them so that they can continue to have contact and feed off of other planets. And then she teleports back to Hunt, but he's in chains and she gets put in chains. And then 74, it goes back to Therian. The other 5 Astery show up, and then Cormac blows up the lab and Pippa, and Therian gets away. It goes back to Bryce and Hunt, and they join Run in the dungeons because Run ran into Mordak. The Harpy is like gonna carve up Run, but then the Hind interferes and Run gets a whiff of her, and as I finally got right, she smells like day. In chapter 74, Bryce also learns that shifters are also fae. Chapter 75, the Hind kills the Harpy, and then Pollux is coming, her like deranged lover who's abusive and awful and a terrible person. And so she unlocks, Run's, binds, and Bryce's, and makes it look like Bryce was the one who killed the Harpy. And so Bryce beats up the Hind, Pollux comes, and then they take the group because more guards come to the Asteroid. Bryce's chains are actually not locked. The Hind left them unlocked, so we'll see what happens. Chapter 76, Bryce basically hugs Run and Hunt goodbye because the deal that she made with Regulus is that they get to leave and be left alone forever if she helps him. She hugs them and unlocks their chains and then kind of whispers to Hunt the plan and then talks telepathically to Run. When Run says Queen, all the chains drop and Hunt and Bryce fire their power at the Astery, and then Bryce basically runs away and tries to teleport out of there and to hell, and she makes it. Chapter 77, Hunt, Run, and then Baxian, because Baxian also defended them, are in chains, and Hunt is branded a slave of the Astery. Again. Oh my god. Oh my god. I am shook. The last chapter of this book, Bryce teleports, and she thought she teleported to hell, but she actually teleports to, like, a court of mist and fury. She teleports to the Night Court, and it's Rhysand and Feyre. What's his face? The Shadow Singer. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, which is really sad because I've read that book so many times. It starts with an A. Anyways, he's the one who picks her up and brings her there, and then he brings out his star sword, and then she has her star sword, and they sing, and they're talking in a different language. But oh my god, she connected the books. I am so shook. It's Rhysand and Feyre and Bryce Quinlan. What the fuck? I'm shook. I just finished the book. I read the epilogue. It's just Ethan camped out in front of the Mystics, like the astronomer's house basically, and then he gets a call from Flynn that shit went down and that people are captive and Bryce is gone and he needs to get back there so Declan can explain it all because Declan was watching the footage. So then he goes in and begs the Mystic, the wolf, like alpha wolf one, to wake up and leave with him because he needed to go and he needed to bring her with. And she does. The alpha wakes up. And that's how that book ends. 801 pages. It's 1:06 a.m. I have been reading this book since 6 p.m. tonight. It came out 1 week ago. That's pretty good. I'm actually kind of disappointed with myself. I feel like I should have finished this book like last week sometime, but whatever. I had school and life and mental health issues to deal with, so it was good. I'm just excited because A Court of Thorns and Glass, Court of Thorns and Roses, that's what it's called. That series is my favorite of all time, like that I've ever read in my entire life. I love Sarah J. Maas and I love all her series, but that's my favorite because of Rhysand and Feyre. There's no couple that will ever compare. Now Bryce is with them. This is insane. 10 out of 10 book. Really liked it. There were a lot of twists and turns, I'm not gonna lie. And I got some very wrong, as you have heard in this video. But I just can't get over the ending. Like, she's literally in the night court. What the hell? Shit's about to get real. That's my reading vlog. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I know this video is long, but it was needed because this girl is a freaking genius. I need to go to bed now, but I'm so like awake. I don't know if that's gonna work out. Thank you so much for watching. It was an insane ride. I'm so glad you could be here with me for it. How cheesy.
My eyes are rolling.